It's time for bookkeeping, beer, and BS. So we were doing an exercise from Traction, which is the get it, want it capacity to do it. So you kind of like grade all your employees that way or your leadership team that way, and then you kind of run them through your core values. So we were going through that. And Dave, to what you were saying about this millennial guy that you kind of like had him pseudo in that role, is he clearly didn't want it, right? And I've made that mistake. But in both cases, I have made the mistake of promoting somebody because they wanted it so bad, but I didn't really assess whether they got it or had the capacity to do it. And so they call their number and they make all these promises, and then they can't do the get it or the capacity to do it, but they want it real bad. And then I've also done the one where it's like, well, I think they get it and I think they actually have the capacity to do it, but they don't want the responsibility. And I've promoted them into it. And in both cases, it's always failed me. The kind of the denominator that we ran into was, for sure, if they don't want it, like if they don't want it, they're out. Yeah. Like they got to be out. If they get it or don't get it, can you coach them? And if they have the capacity, if they don't have the capacity to do it, can you teach them? Yeah. And maybe they can, maybe they can't. But if they don't want it, then you got nothing.
Yeah.
Well, and the only thing, just to kind of clarify on the wanting it, is, do you want to continue to progress, or do they want to be the best damn assistant tech? And so that's fine if they're happy where they're at and they want that. I too often will look at it and like, if you don't want to progress to become a lead, to be able to make more money and stuff, then therefore you don't want it. Some people just don't want the additional responsibility and accountability. And if they can succeed at their level, if they can get it and clearly they got the capacity, that can be an acceptable solution that's not really on my mindset, but it still doesn't make them, somebody.
You know what happens here? All of us are entrepreneurial, and we don't settle for our position, right? We want to grow. That's us. But we need the people that are in their worker bees spot just to be worker bees, and we project a lot of times onto them what we want them to do, but they're not capable of doing it. So a lot of times we fail because we're like, you can do this, and you try to coach them up, and like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I like what I used to do, right? And stuff. I mean, I've done that a lot, because I mean, they'll, and the problem is they'll tell you they want to do it. They get in a position, it's like, yeah, I don't like this, and it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
And then you get let down, and you're like, oh man, that sucks. Yeah. You're the problem, not them. And so you have to really, and I've really started to recognize over the last 18 months, especially coming out of COVID, because we downsized quite a bit during 2020, and we had to rebuild. And we had to recognize that we just need worker bees. We pretty much have our kings and queens and leads and all that. We don't need people that are super ambitious. Not that we don't want it and we'll do it, but we have that already. And if someone shines out of that position, even better. But I'm not forcing it on them like I used to kind of try to do. And I think a lot of young companies, as they're growing, that $500 to $1.2 million mark, that's a hard place to live, and then excel past that, because the people that got you there are probably not capable of getting you past that. They've hit their deal, and they have to go on. You have a lot of people what I call shooting stars. They're awesome for a year, and they thrive in that, really being the new guy who kicks ass and takes names, and then he can't consistently do it. So he has to go to another company to do that again, because that's his. Yeah, that's the sweet spot. Yeah. That's the deal. We all experience that, right? And so you have to start recognizing the type of people and who you really need and when you need them, and how to go. And it's tough. So,
Chad, do you think there's something that you can do with somebody like that, if you're able to identify that, to tweak their role, tweak the expectations, to then get somebody like that to stick around for multiple years? Or is that just when somebody's got that mentality that it's best off to let them roll out like Dan is rolling out right now?
Well, it depends if they're
everyone I am now in charge.